and glio, Glio, means glue. So what happened was, those cancer cells started growing and dividing, and in my head I was just hearing glue gone wild. It's just like gone crazy, So that's where the subtitle comes from. And then of course the tumor was in the frontal lobe of my brain. So
yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So would you mind going in a little bit and then in depth about your book? So it is really the first hand account of this entire experience? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
I gave you the short version. But...
Okay. Where does it start? Like, does it start right when you're in the doctor's office? Does it start like right when that incident happened or before then?
Yeah, it starts in the coffee shop where I first had the seizure. Yep.
Okay, and then goes to there. So could you describe, I guess, kind of what was it like the moment the doctor told you had cancer?
Well, I was convinced I didn't have cancer, and in my brain, I've always been a very intuitive person. I think most writers would consider themselves intuitive. And so I had just convinced myself that it was not like he was even speaking, and I was still convinced that I didn't have cancer. And my mom was with me, and she said that she knew as soon as he started talking that the news wasn't good. But in my mind, I was in so much denial that even when he was talking, I was smiling and nodding. And then he said, it turns out it is cancer. And I started shaking, and I couldn't stop shaking. But my surgeon was very, very kind, and he said, I'll come back tomorrow, digest this news a little bit, and then we'll talk about treatment options. And by the next day, I was ready to talk about treatment. So, we kind of met up the next day and talked about it, and I just decided to move forward. And so the book is written starting with the initial incident, and then it goes through my first round of chemo and my radiation. So it ends after that.
Okay. Oh, sure. So how long was it from the moment you were diagnosed to you actually had the surgery?
Well, so I was just told there was a mass on my brain, and then that was on December 18th, and I had the surgery on the 22nd.
Oh, wow. So that happened very, very quickly.
Very fast, yeah.
Yeah. And so this, when were you diagnosed with this, and how long have you been in recovery?
So I was just diagnosed in 2017, so I'm still in treatment right now.
So this literally happened less than a year ago? Is that
yes,
correct?
and the book is done, and yeah, exactly. It happened very fast.
Wow. So, I mean, you're quite the prolific writer to complete an entire novel in such a short period of time. Also with what you're describing, the fact that you couldn't use your hands for
right.
a large part of this. That's amazing.
Yep. Well, I keep making the joke, I've always wanted time, like a semester off to write, but when you're non-tenure track, you don't really have that option. And I said, well, this is my semester to write. And so I feel like I really took advantage of it, and just writing actually gave me a purpose. The treatment was very hard, and I had a lot of help, which was great, but it is a deadly disease, and so that's always in the back of my mind too. And I thought this could be my last chance to tell a story, and so I just wanted to put it out there.
Sure. So then let's talk about so this is, how are you getting this book published? Are you self-publishing, or are you going through a more traditional publisher on this one?
So this time, it took me I guess not too long of a time, but I put a lot of thought into it, and just kind of asked myself, like, do I want to self-publish this again, or do I want to try the more traditional route? And I thought, you know what? Let's just see what happens if I submit it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Submittable. It's a tool that writers and artists use. It makes everything really streamlined. Like, you can go on there and search people looking for fiction, and then it'll give you a list of all the publishers who are currently seeking fiction. So I did a search like that and submitted it to a few places, and a lovely lady named Lisa Kastner from Running Wild Press got back to me and said, we'd love to publish your book. And I was a little shocked, because I just didn't think it's just really, publishing's cutthroat, it's very, very hard, because everybody has something they want to publish. And so I was shocked, and I was actually on a cruise when I found out, which was nice. And so I was having kind of the best week ever. I was on a cruise, and then I found out I'm getting my book published. So that worked out nicely. But Running Wild Press will do all of the stuff that I didn't like that I had to do in self-publishing. So they kind of, edit it, format it, and I worked very closely with my editor, Barbara Lockwood, on making sure the book was exactly where it needed to be. And now they're doing like all the formatting and the cover and all of those things that, are really difficult, I think, for writers to do. So that's been nice.
Oh, wonderful. Sure.
Yeah.
So, how far along in your book were you when you submitted it to Submittable? Were you had you already written most of it? Was it just a brief outline? Or how far along were you?
Yes, it was completely finished when I submitted it, but of course you think that everything's perfect when you submit it, but then of course when I went back through with Barbara, we found all of these mistakes, but
right.
It was in good shape to submit.
Okay.
It was finished, it was complete. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, excellent.
And I submitted quite a few places, but Lisa was the first one to get back to me. And so then once Submittable is so easy to use, once someone accepts your work, you can just withdraw it from the other places so you don't get any double acceptances or anything like that. So that made it really easy.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Excellent. So with your other writing that you're doing, so have you, because I know that you said you're much more prolific in flash fiction.
Right.
Have you still been writing flash fiction, before and after this, your diagnosis a year ago?
Well, I stopped for a while, but I'm kind of like anyone who's artistic. I think it's just something inside of you that you kind of have to do. Your body just won't let you rest,
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm not going to do anything else. That was my last big thing. But then, of course, I still have all of these ideas and, these lines that would fit into stories come into my head when I'm trying to fall asleep or when I'm in the shower or when I'm driving. I think, I have to put that in a story, or someone will say something that really strikes me as funny or odd, and I think, I need to write that down and put it in a story someday. So I say that I'm kind of done, but I don't think that writers are ever done, even if they say they are. So
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
I'm sure I'll do more at some point.
Sure. Did your writing change from before and then after your diagnosis?
I don't really think it changed a whole lot, but of course, I hit my groove with writing flash fiction, and then, I thought, I want to write this longer work. And so really the longer work is little pieces of flash fiction is kind of how I see it that I combined. Okay. So, so I kind of, stayed on the same track. It's just they all connect and it's a longer work and just a bunch of little flash pieces tied together.
Oh, yeah. Great. So in everything that you've done so far, what would you say has been the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, the best advice I've ever received is writers make choices. And that doesn't sound like much, but it's something I tell my students. And if you think about it, it's absolutely true. Like, I could have written the book so many different ways. Mm-hmm. I left a lot of things out, that I could have put in there, but you have to make the choice of what's going to work best for your novel, for your story, for whatever, for your class essay, whatever it is. So yeah, writers make choices. I forget. I think a teacher told me that. I don't remember which one, but it really stuck with me through the years.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So how do you make choices then in your writing? Is it something that's just like you go with your gut? Is there a logical, formulaic way that you make choices?
Yeah, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, I always, until I got my cancer diagnosis anyway, I thought I was a really intuitive person. And so I do go with my gut, but the way I write is I just write everything out at first, and then I'll go back and cut a lot of things out. And so sometimes, you write something and you think, oh, that's really important, or that's really good. And then you wait a couple days and go back and read it later and think, oh, that doesn't fit in the story at all. I have to take that out. It doesn't make sense. And my editor, Barbara, too, was really good about, I tend to be repetitive sometimes, or I was kind of telling the same story in the book more than once. And she would say, okay, we know this, you got to cut this out. It's really pretty the way you wrote it, but you got to get rid of it. So yeah, that's always interesting.
Oh, sure. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and tell me more about your new book that's coming out. I really appreciate it. If the listeners, of course, if listeners would like to buy your book, first off, where is the best place they can do that? And
the easiest. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt either.
No, we'll start with that one. Where is the best place to buy your book first?
The easiest place would be Amazon, but you can also, it's going to be in a lot of bookstores, but you can always also go in to any bookstore and ask them to order it if it's not there. But Amazon's probably the easiest place.
Oh, sure. Oh, wonderful. So physical bookstores. Are there like Barnes and Nobles type or independent bookstores?
Mostly I'm shooting for independent bookstores. I kind of believe in their mission. So, but if you go into any bookstore and ask them to order it, they will be able to.
Okay, excellent. And then if the listeners would like to read more of your writing or other samples of your writing or get in touch with you, where is the best place they can do for either of those?
I mean, definitely if you just Google my name, you'll see a lot of my flash fiction come up. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Suzanne Samples. So it's kind of an odd name, so I should be pretty easy to find, I think.
You are. I did a little research ahead of time.
I know you did your research.
I did, and you are pretty easy to find, so that's good to know. Excellent. Well, again, Suzanne, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Advance Your Art podcast. If you like this episode, please go into iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so that every single time I release a new episode, it will go directly to you without even thinking about it. If you're interested in hearing older episodes, please go to advanceyourart.com where you can find the catalog of everything I've done so far, as well as contact information and projects I'm working on. Thank you again, and have a great day.